All right, so this is Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Skylar Thomas, and we're going to be discussing her bare knuckle fighting currently. And before we start, I do have a couple of sponsors. Live to Fight Design, who makes fight banners and gym banners for fighters, and Bet Stamp, which is my new sponsor for kind of like a gambling sponsor. And Skylar, I appreciate you taking time to do this. And for people who aren't familiar with you, I just kind of let you introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on the show. It's an honor. I had started my, I guess, MMA journey probably roughly about like 10 years ago. I had my first MMA fight, and then from there, I kind of went into the more traditional martial arts, taekwondo. I ended up getting my black belt in that. And that was all through a separate gym from the gym I go to currently. But, you know, um, a few MMA fights later, kickboxing fights later, and a boxing fight later, I'm now professional, and I have two bare knuckle fights under my belt. Currently 1-1 at this time, and I'm looking to kind of go ahead and increase those winning numbers for sure. So.
Now, when did you like in your life, when did you get your first exposure to like martial arts, I would say?
In high school, I was seeing somebody that was getting into jujitsu and then kickboxing, and I went with him, and it just looked really exciting. It looked like a lot of fun, and I just kind of asked him. I was like, would you mind if I tried this out? He said, go for it. So ever since I tried that, it was kind of like, okay, now I need to find like a legitimate gym, because where he was going was just like it was an after school type thing. It wasn't set in a gym. It was actually set at Fife High School. It was taught by one of the English teachers there. So, after I graduated high school, I kind of set out to find like a legitimate mixed martial arts gym, and I found one, and that's where I had, most of my fights out of. Recently, within the past, year and a half or so, I transitioned to a different gym that's more jujitsu based. Even though I am still competing in bare knuckle, that's something I kind of is also my to do list is, to get my black belt in jujitsu. I've been doing jujitsu for a while now, but I've never really been belted in it. So that's next on my agenda after I ride that, bare knuckle train, of course. So that was kind of my first exposure, was like back in high school.
Now, had you seen any combat sports before that, or was it that really
Oh
like your
yeah.
first exposure at all?
No, I really enjoyed watching the UFC fights
Hmm.
a lot. My mom was a single mom for a while, and she's very much like doesn't like violence or guns or anything like that. So I'm kind of actually very much the opposite of that, and I wanted to watch it, and being her only daughter, it's kind of hard for her to let go. So that was, my first exposure to that was definitely seeing like UFC fights and whatnot. And just looking at it and being like, I need to be involved with that. I don't know how, but I'm gonna make it happen.
So even before the guy took you, you already had some familiarity with what it was.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. It just so happened that, you know, so when he took you, you were kind of like, oh yeah, I've already seen this.
Yeah.
So
And
you're
it was
already
actually
interested.
and his
Okay.
his frame of mind, he was kind of like a wasn't necessarily a good egg. He was involved in a lot of like street fights and stuff, and for whatever reason, I gravitated towards that, and I wanted to take it to the next level. I wanted to, not just some street fights. I wanted to be legitimate and be a part of something way bigger.
So tell me about when you first get in there. Maybe talk about like you're first trying to develop. Maybe give me some of your memories of that.
Yeah. Yeah, my first MMA fight, it was kind of like thrown together, I felt like, as far as like being ready and being prepared. I had maybe only a few months of training and nothing using any sort of kicking, and my groundwork was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. So I just went in there and I just wanted to punch. That's all I wanted to do was punch the whole time. And it was predominantly my right hand. And it was it looked like a hockey fight where I was just resting my left hand on her shoulder and just, keep going and keep going. And I just didn't want to stop. And it was such a good feeling. And so that's kind of how I got my fight named the Goon, because it looked like a brutal hockey fight. So that was exciting. And I had realized from there, I was just like, there's a winner at the end of this. I did like, I was so excited with what I had just done. And I was like, you don't have to go to jail after this. You can do this for free. All right, sign me up. So I did that, and I just kind of fell in love with it. I didn't really care if there was a result at the end, but the result was is that I won via unanimous decision. So it was really successful, and I just wanted to keep, pursuing that dream. So it was awesome.
Now you said it was only a few months in. Was it something that you were pushing for, or was it something they came to you and asked
No,
you to do?
yeah, I mean, my coach at the time, I just was super dedicated because I loved it so much and I love learning. I always love learning. And he just kind of came up to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to fight?" And I was like, "You mean like for real? Like you think I'd be ready?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely. You can do it. You got this." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, sign me up."
Mhm.
So it's just kind of like, going with the flow. And just putting in the work, really. I will grind it out. I've always been the only female, and not only in a male dominated sport, but any sort of gym, really. I've usually been the only female. So those guys, they don't necessarily take it easy on you. If anything, you kind of earn your keep to be there. That's kind of how I felt like I had to prove myself. Was some of those guys, you just do shark tank rounds, and even the feeling of like you wanting to quit, like you just power through that. Even if you're like vomiting, nope, you get back in there, you keep working. So that was my cup of tea for sure.
So you have the first one, and how soon were you wanting to do another one? After you did it, what was your kind of like your thought process?
I I wanted to do another one fairly quickly. Unfortunately, finding women at that weight class,
Mhm.
because I believe I fought at, I think, 145 or 150 the first time, and it's hard to find women where I was at to be ready to compete. So there was a lot of, matchmaking, and then fights falling through, or the promotion fell through. But fairly quickly, I wanted to keep doing it. But sometimes life gets in the way, unfortunately. But I always like to say I'm like the kid that got held back a lot, because my training expertise is, I have way more years of training than what my record shows. But I have quite a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that. So that's why I keep trying to push to keep getting more fights. And yeah, I'll keep on keeping on.
So talk to me a little bit about, bare knuckle, because I still think, even though it's been around for a while now, I still think it's still, I would say, extreme to people, to MMA fighters. Even I think it's a little extreme
Oh,
to most MMA fighters to be like, yeah, what they're
oh,
doing is a little,
absolutely.
out there.
It's
So
Yeah, absolutely.
what made you think, okay, this is something I want to do? Like, yeah, I want to do this one.
Honestly, I wasn't really sure I wanted to do it at first. I had somebody that I had trained with for a really long time, Randine. She was kind of the first person, uh, female, I should say, that I saw go through that process. And I just thought, and she's a dear friend to me, and she's already kind of like wild on her own, right? So her making like these decisions, I was like, yeah, that sounds like, something that she would do. She's super tough. She's never taken an easy fight ever. And so I saw her do it, and I was like, it's kind of badass.
Mhm.
And then I'd seen my ex do it, and I was like, I don't know. But then I saw that, and I was there in person and cornering, and I'm just like, wow, it is a little barbaric, but there's something about it that, at least when I did it, it made me feel like, oh, I am capable of so much. And it was definitely like, something that you could like potentially pioneer, because now that these legitimate, promotions are
Right.
coming out, it's there's not a lot of women doing it. So being able to kind of pioneer that sport was something that was on my agenda, to be able to pioneer, a combat sport. And I felt like that was a really great opportunity. And I felt like that I could really, sell some tickets and really make a great show out of it for a lot of people.
So tell me how it lined up with the promotion, first of all. Like, how did you get in?
Yeah, so at the time, I was with my ex, and that was definitely something on his bucket list that he wanted to complete. And I tried reaching out to a couple different people that I knew were currently participating in those promotions. And kind of what had happened is, you end up knowing people and networking and say, oh, well, I got in contact with this person, try this person. So it was really just all about like networking essentially. My ex did it, and then his management had reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be managed at the time, and I did end up getting managed by him and ended up getting a contract through them. So but currently I'm no longer under that management anymore. So now I'm just flying solo and having fun doing it.
Yeah, so let me ask you this, because like I'm pretty close with Chris Leben. I trained with him when I lived on Oahu, and I
Yeah,
kind of talked to him about when he first started doing it. And so I'm
yeah,
gonna kind of ask you about this too, because how did you prepare? Because I kind of asked him how he prepared. He kind of told me he did some things. So
yeah.
I want to see what you
I
said.
mean, ultimately, I still trained with 16-ounce boxing gloves. However, people that I knew were a little bit more better in their boxing. I would have more like puffy glove, training with them, like 4-ounce type gloves, because if you think about it, 16-ounce gloves, they're good for like your muscle endurance, and whatnot, but it's not realistic when you get in there in the trigon and you're actually fighting. You have to consider, quite a lot of things. You're going to have your hands up a little bit higher than you normally would, like in an MMA fight. You're going to have like a different stance. You're going to have a different game plan all around. So, I mean, definitely people ask me all the time about knuckle conditioning. I'll do like knuckle conditioning on the bag, occasionally and stuff like that. I've seen people where they just punch a bucket of sand down. I know in Lithuania fighting, that's something that they definitely predominantly do. Ultimately, I mean, I didn't really do a whole lot of knuckle conditioning. I haven't had my wrist broken. I haven't had my hand broken, nothing like that. I've been lucky in that. But definitely icing, especially after really hard rounds, sparring and whatnot, even puffy glove sparring. Just making sure icing, and then also when I do the knuckle conditioning, also making sure I ice after that as well. But um, with my training partners, if I have more confidence that they can take a good beating, then obviously I'm gonna have them put on the puffy gloves. But if I'm, just trying to help my team out and, get them better, then I'm definitely just gonna keep the 16-ounce gloves on.
So when you hit the bag, what were you hitting it with?
Just my knuckles, just nothing
Okay,
else on
yeah,
there.
just
Yeah,
because like
just
Chris
straight
told me he
knuckles.
was duct taping his hands.
Yep.
Huh. So you were just
I
hitting it
mean,
just
some
straight.
people, yep, I was just in a straight, and it's like, if I break skin, that happens, skin heals, just bandage it up and keep going. But, you got to develop, those calluses somehow, right? So,
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's kind of similar to the early UFC where guys are still kind of maybe asking each other what ideas they have for it. So it's a little bit
oh,
different.
yeah. And I've networked with people that are on the same, promotion that I am. And, they've given me advice here and there. And everybody has, their own way of going about training for bare knuckle and what they feel like is an advantage and what they feel like isn't an advantage. Some things I've heard are kind of wild, like, people, saying that they want to hold on to their thumb and keep their thumb on the inside of their fingers. And that sounds like a good way to get your thumb broken, but whatever works for them. Everybody's got their own, techniques or ways that they feel like makes them better. So if that makes their mentality a little bit stronger to be in there and to endure that, then, that's on them. So
So tell me about the first fight. Like,
yeah.
what was your overall experience like?
Yeah, I mean, it did not go my way for sure. I definitely was out within the first round. I believe she dropped me quite a few times, but there was something in me that no matter like because you don't really have control over that. It's really placement. If that punch is placed, right in the spot where it's supposed to be and it lands, it could be just like a perfect kiss on the chin, right? And then next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'm on the ground. Okay, let's get up. So
Mhm.
at that point, I was just like, oh shit, she dropped me. Oh shit, she dropped me. And then I was like, get up, get up, get up. So I just kept getting up. But thankfully, um, the ref, I think, did a great job in calling it and, making the calls that he did. It wasn't necessarily like scary for me.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people ask that and they think, oh, were you scared? What was it like? And it was more loud than anything. It sounded really like loud more than anything, but I felt, more just like I let my team down. But other than that, I knew for me, it wasn't going to be the end of bare knuckle for me. I was like, this was something that I needed to work on, and I didn't get a chance to showcase what I'm really capable of. And I just knew I'd be back. So, it was something for me to look at as far as like, okay, go back to the drawing board. What do I need to, go over as far as my training? So that if anything, I feel like, you need to take some of those losses and, see where they can help you grow to make you, one of the better fighters, one of the more entertaining fighters.
Did you feel like you had cutting of the face?
No,
No.
I mean, I think maybe like a little bit like right here, but
Mhm.
I didn't need stitches or anything like that. So yeah, I felt pretty great.
Because
Honestly,
in bare
it
knuckle,
was
it does
fun.
seem a little bit more like the cutting happens.
Oh yeah, you got to think like bone on bone and skin.
Mhm.
I mean, you're bound to get cut. It's gonna happen, but it's all part of it, right?
It doesn't like it doesn't concern you about cutting or any of that kind of stuff.
No, no,
No.
I'm definitely one of those people where like if I get a black eye or if I'm bleeding or anything like that, I will document that. Like I earned those battle scars. Like I worked hard for that shit. And I'm gonna show it off because that's what I'm in this for. You know what I mean? I like the pain of it. I like the intensity. I like how barbaric it can be. That's just something that's really kind of having me gravitate towards it. So um I love it. And, a couple stitches and be good as new.
Now, after the fight, talking about going back to the drawing board, what do you think maybe you could have improved on?
Definitely head movement, being a little bit lighter on my feet, my stance. I mean, really, I feel like it kind of came back to technical boxing skills, which wasn't something that I had a lot of familiarity in, with my previous gym. So with that, I've been reaching out to some people that are more boxing based, technical boxing based, to kind of get the groundwork in as far as that goes and what I need to work on, and working on definitely, utilizing my jab first and foremost, especially being in such a tight area, right? And establishing my distance and using my reach is, my best weapon.
Because I feel like you can blend the two, right? Because you can hold and hit, which is
Oh,
illegal in
absolutely.
boxing, so you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of do a
Yep.
little both. It's
Yeah. It allows me to kind of utilize my more dirty boxing because I don't have a problem with applying pressure in a fight. I just need to know when it's appropriate to apply that pressure. And you're totally right. You can definitely clench up and kind of work that dirty boxing in. But again, knowing time and place when it's appropriate to be able to do that, with your opponent.
now I had heard when you were doing the interview that you had signed a deal with BYB.
I did. I signed a 4 fight contract with BYB Extreme Fight Series. So I'm literally waiting on a phone call, a contract from them to kind of go ahead and get that taken care of. I've had the matchmaker reach out to me saying that, I'm just looking to where to put you with another opponent that's been in talks. So I'm really excited about that. I'm just kind of waiting by the phone, waiting for that to come through. Like anytime you want to put me out there, just say the word. I'm kind of chomping at the bit at this point, but it's been quite a 2023 year for me, and I have quite a lot of anger to unleash. So I would like to fight sooner rather than later.
Yeah, how frustrating can that be? Because I know it can be hard to find opponents when, because
Yeah.
female fighting, especially in bare knuckles, is probably not anywhere close to MMA as far as numbers.
Right, exactly. There are some females that are, in talks with, me fighting them, and I'm all on board for that. But, the promotion that I'm under with BYB, they're a great promotion, and I feel like they sign a new female probably every month, and not just local females. They find females with legitimate talent. I mean, they believe they just signed Helen Peralta.
Mm.
So I believe she's got a fight coming up in February, and she's the business. She's not something that's easy. Not that she's in my weight class or anything, but she definitely knows what she's doing, and they've had a lot of different fighters sign from different countries and whatnot. So I love that they're not just sticking to one area, but they're looking to grow altogether. And I really like that. And I really feel like they have my best interest at heart and, looking out for the fighters, which is awesome.
Now, kind of talk to me about you're still kind of trying to focus on jujitsu too. So how hard is that to do when
Mhm.
you're
I
trying to
mean,
do
it can
this
be
also?
yeah, I mean, it can be a little bit difficult, but I mean, I don't really have much of a life other than working and then doing my training in mixed martial arts and and hanging out with my son. That's really all I got going on for me right now. I mean, my garage I've transferred into like my home gym, so I have jujitsu mats in there. I have heavy bags hanging, so I have created, a good area for myself to be able to continue training. And I don't give myself any excuses, So it's just, I wake up, I work out, I work my day job, and then I go to training or I hang out with my son. But sometimes my son comes with me to training. So I just try to balance it as much as I can. And it's really awesome to have a nice support system too, not just with my gym over at Gig Harbor MMA, but also with the surrounding gyms. On Saturdays, I'll go and I'll cross train over at United Training Center, which I've been friends with Lisa and Eddie for years and years. And they're always wanting to know how they can help and if I need anything. So being able to surround myself with people that are super supportive and that want to see me succeed is super important. And you know, it's nice to have that.
How do you feel you've developed in jujitsu to this point?
To this point, I definitely feel like I could be a lot better. I don't feel like I'm at the point I would want to be at, but I'm also super hard on myself. And I kind of can set sometimes unrealistic expectations for myself, but I honestly feel that just drives me more to be a better fighter, a better competitor. So like I said, I have never really been belted in jujitsu or gi jujitsu, but I've been doing no gi for, quite a long time. However, I feel like I can still pretty hold my own pretty much.
Mhm. So, like, just to kind of talk about jujitsu in general, like
Mhm.
when you first started, what did you feel like you were picking up and what were you kind of
So
struggling with for people
I
that
was definitely
train, to kind of,
Yeah, so I was struggling staying on my back too much for sure. I would leave myself open to positions that put me in danger. I wasn't being, a couple steps ahead of my opponent, and so that would put me into a lot of danger. Knowing when to, go for a submission and if it's not working and, when to transition to a different one or just knowing and just flowing through different positions versus the submissions and just looking for all the different targets that you could go for in different submissions and those variations of those submissions as well. So, I mean, really, there's a lot of it that I feel like I could do a lot better in. I've done a couple different competitions. It's been some time since I've done some competitions, but that's something I would definitely like to dive more into. But like I said, trying to focus on bare knuckle and jujitsu can be kind of difficult. So because I have an active, contract with BYB, I try to focus more on that. However, people are, jujitsu classes happening, I'm going to try and make that right. And people that want to roll, I'm going to roll with them. So,
Well, tell me about the Trigon because I know you fought in MMA, you had a couple of amateur fights, and
mhm.
stuff. So you're fighting this triangle. Kind of tell
Mhm.
me what it's like fighting in that, the kind of the
uh,
challenges of that.
yeah, I mean, first of all, it's like half the size of a boxing ring. So that throws you off, especially my first fight going in there. I don't think I really understood how small the area was going to be until after the first time I was in there, and I was like, oh wow, this is small. And then I felt like the second time I went in there, it was kind of funny because I felt the opposite. I was like, oh, this feels a lot bigger than the last time I was here. So I think mainly just focusing on training on a really tight space definitely helps with that. And utilizing that tight space to your advantage. That's really the best way to kind of go about it. But it's not anything for me that was like super concerning or super scary. Mentally, it threw me off my game the first time I went in there. I will admit that. But I felt like since then, I was just like, oh, okay, this is just something that I have to adjust, right? We go in there, we do our best, and we adjust our game plan a little bit more, based on what we're competing in.
Now, how are you going to find places to train that have this kind of bizarre shape because you're
Right.
not
I
going to
mean,
find rings like that.
right. Yeah, exactly. So at that point, it's just setting up cones and making sure you have your team there and kind of like make you, you know, just kind of, keep you on track and say, we'll kind of like line up and have people stand in that position and make sure that, I'm not going out of bounds. So
Mm.
that and then just staying within the cones, really. I mean, that those are the barriers that I have really to work with. So, or even up against a wall in those tight corners, because we did just, relocate. My gym did. So there are some corners for us to train in that are going to be used at our advantage to kind of help get me ready for that. So I'm really excited to try that out and get that started.
Because I would feel like fighting in a triangle that the corners would almost be like a real sticking point, even more than in a
Mm-hmm.
square.
Yeah,
Do you agree?
absolutely. So there's three areas for you to like, really get trapped in. So I'm a person though where it's like I will be aware of my surroundings and realize like, oh, maybe not smart to get trapped in a corner. I really am a big believer in your body, in your body mechanics and your will kind of show um I guess where a person is mentally, especially mid fight, if they're backing up, and they're still up against the ropes, they're like, you just got to keep being consistent on that and keep adding to the punches because that they're at moments from just breaking mentally. So I feel like once you break that, their mentality being in there and you capitalize on that, it breaks them down physically. So that's kind of how I kind of look into that. And I'm a big person on playing my poker face, even if that something hurts super bad or if it was a good hit or whatever. I'm not going to show it. I'm going to be a poker face, So, if somebody can get me to, you know, kind of back up or be up against the ropes or in a corner, then they're doing exactly what they need to do. But I'm a big person that's like it's not going to be me. It's going to be them. Has it been me in the past? Absolutely, it's been me. But like I said, I've always been back to the drawing board and learning from that so I can grow and be a better entertaining fighter.
Now, do you watch a lot of boxing or no? Since you do this kind of hybrid of
Right.
it.
It kind of does go hand in hand. I will watch some boxing fights. Um, Canelo, obviously, because his head work is amazing, right? There's a couple other ones too, but honestly, I'm really just so focused on the bare knuckle fights more than anything, and how how people kind of work the trigon is what I will pay attention to more than anything. But a lot of people they do stem from a boxing background, so anything I can watch on boxing is gonna I think help me in the long run more than anything. But I the bare knuckle is just so exciting to watch. Not that boxing isn't exciting, but man, there's something about bare knuckle where you're just kind of you can't look away.
Now, what was their thought process behind using the Trigon? Do you know?
Uh, I'm not quite sure. I know obviously originally stemmed from the backyard brawls, with Data 5000, and originally it was a cage. So it would they didn't have the ropes. It was just a one solid cage. But then eventually they went to the ropes, and I dig that. But honestly, it's the smallest cage in combat sports. So to be able, or I should say, smallest ring in combat sports. So to be able to say that, you've competed in that is pretty freaking awesome. But now you have things some in different countries, like people are doing jujitsu in cars, right? Or they're doing, phone booth fighting, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, I think people just want to see humans be stuck in a compromisable position that is detrimental to one or the other. And that's really exciting for anybody, whether you enjoy bare knuckle or not, whether you like it or not. You're not going to go past that video and not click on it. You're going to want to see what's going on. You're going to want to see it, whether you like it or not. It's entertainment and it's awesome.
I don't know if I want to see people fight in a car, but I guess I would. I have
I
watched
mean,
it.
jujitsu,
You're
right?
right.
So
I
it's
have
it's just
watched it.
jujitsu based. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's more like I guess if you were to think about it, if you were in your car, getting in your car, and there was somebody in the back seat and you didn't know it, then all of a sudden they, like attacked you, how would you get out of it? And only using jujitsu, right?
Right.
So I think it's fairly interesting thinking about it in like a real world type of
Right.
concept, right? But entertainment wise, if you're a big jujitsu practitioner and that's your main focus is, just jujitsu, it might offer you some entertainment and some different ideas that you maybe didn't think about before.
Now, how much do you find yourself watching a lot of MMA still, or?
Not as much, unfortunately. I see a lot of clips, scrolling through Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. And um, as much as I would like to, unfortunately, I'm not able to just because I am working or I'm training and I miss a lot of the good ones. But it's nice when you have social media and you can kind of look back and you don't have to pay the 80 to $100 just to watch them, right?
Best place to go is the theaters.
Oh,
The
yeah,
big events, if you can go
definitely.
to the theaters, that's the best place to go.
Oh, yeah.
It's only like 25 bucks, so that's usually where I would go.
Oh, hell yeah.
So that's my suggestion. But now I know we are talking offline a little bit, and I had seen this in another interview where you're kind of into metal and you're kind of talking about you work at a like a horror themed bar. Is that what it was? Kind of tell
Yeah,
me
yeah.
about that because that's not a lot of people do that. So
Yeah, it's a horror themed bar. It's called the Church Cantina, and originally, I really, I really wanted to be sponsored by them because, if I were to go out to a bar, that would be the bar that I would go to because not only do they have great drinks, a great atmosphere, great people there, but the food there, they have so many different dietary options. They have stuff for people that are vegan. They have stuff for people that are vegetarian, whatever it is, gluten free, what you name it. Like, they have so many different types of food there that is Cuban inspired. So it's not anything that you would get anywhere else. It's very uniquely one of a kind. And I really enjoyed that. So ultimately, I really wanted a sponsorship, but they're very like firm and like not supporting any sort of sports. Like they don't have TVs in there that will show any sort of sports or anything like that because the vibe is horror, right? We're horror themed.
right.
So we show nothing but horror movies. There's lots of like dark collectible type of things all about, and like movie posters everywhere. There's skee ball, there's pool, there's a photo booth. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of cool things there for people to meet, and everyone's just pretty down to earth and pretty simple, but it's awesome there. I love it, and it's kind of like my second home for sure.
Or is the crowd more like a darker, style and
Oh yeah, yeah, we have like our goth nights that we have like once a month, and our dance macabre nights. So people get pretty into it. They get into their like best goth clothes, and we'll have a DJ that comes in and play dark wave music. And, people get really into it and they, dance and they do their thing. And it's a lot of fun. A lot of people have a really good time. So it's cool to be amongst, similar people in that way. And I really enjoy it.
Now, how involved are you in the bar? Like, what do you do there?
I just bar back right now,
Mhm.
so that's all I really do. I'll bring food out, I'll clean dishes and whatnot. But I mean, that's really it. It's very simple, you know. Um, that's kind of just where I'm at. It's just in addition to my daytime job. So, but it's really awesome because they're very good about including like the employees and things and just doing fun stuff and everyone there is just really nice. It's like a community ultimately. So I really dig that. And I always like to let them know that I appreciate, them creating that community for people that are also, like me and whatnot. So I appreciate that.
I figured maybe they would want to feature you, not just because you're competing, but also because you're
Mhm.
into that kind of thing. So it's kind of like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's where they are, they were very nice and kind enough to be like, unfortunately we can't help you with the sponsorship. However, we do need some help currently. And I'm like, hey, I got you. I'm there for you. So it's a really awesome experience. And I just love, Adam and Nicole, and they're great people. They're the owners there, and they're just such good people. And they've created such a great space for everybody in the community. And I just can't be more thankful for that opportunity.
now I know you're kind of into metal music and stuff. Like, what bands
Hmm.
are you into? Like, because
Yeah.
apparently you're able to see a lot up there still. Where I live, you don't, they aren't coming through that much
No.
anymore.
Oh no. I went to my first black metal concert this past year. I believe it was Death Funeral. And they were really good. I got super into it and I put all the makeup on and I thought that was so much fun. And right now I'm into, After the Burial, Knocked Loose, Motionless in White. I mean, you know, I'm trying to think a couple other ones right now at the top of my head. But and all the other basic, ones like Ramstein, of course, that's going to be a part of it as well. I don't know. I like as much as I love metal, I love all different types of music, but metal is definitely kind of what has my heart. I also like a lot of the emo music as well. So lots of like Taking Back Sunday, Devil Wears Prada, Bring Me the Horizon, In This Moment, uh, gosh, like Type O Negative, and that's
Oh
more
yeah,
like,
I saw that.
gothic type,
Yeah.
so the range is like very big, but I mean, if I go to a metal concert, there's no questions asked. I'm gonna be in the mosh pit. And I recently saw Knocked Loose and After the Burial and Motionless in White in concert at the WAMU Theater, and that was probably one of the more aggressive like mosh pits I've ever like been a part of, and I thought it was so freaking awesome. Yeah, like the Browning, I've seen the Browning. Um, gosh, well, Born of Osiris, like there's so many. I feel
Yeah.
like ever since I could start going to concerts, especially metal concerts, I've been going to them. So like 16 hit, and there was no looking back.
Uh, that's interesting. Yeah,
Hmm.
well, I live in kind of outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, but they used to come here a lot. Like, there's a place called Kane's Ballroom that was pretty famous, and they used to come there a lot. But I guess they don't bring them to those
Oh,
games anymore. But like, it's pretty
yeah.
well known because Sid Vicious punched a hole in the wall there, and the owner like
Hmm.
framed it so you can go there, and
Yeah.
it's still there. And
That's
so,
awesome.
but yeah, there's so it's a pretty well known place, I guess, amongst bands and stuff. This Kane's Ballroom area, but
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
you don't see the acts quite as much as it used to, at least in
Yeah.
the city. But yeah, it's very interesting to hear that they're still performing up where you're at.
Oh, I'm super happy about it. There was for a while, I think during COVID, that they talked about, doing away with one of the venues out in Seattle called El Corazon. And that's where one of my favorite venues to go to see a show because it is a small venue. However, it's a very intimate venue. And you have experiences there with the bands that you would never really normally have in bigger venues, and that's freaking awesome. Like people that started out there when they were not really as well known, they will, kind of go back there as like a tribute, to not only their fans, but the people that always believed in them to get to the spot where they are at now. So to be able to experience that with people, I mean, that's awesome, and I have one of my sponsors, one of her boyfriend does security there. So he's always like, I'm always happy when you show up because then it makes my job a lot easier. He's like, you just handle the pit just fine and I don't really have to do much. I can just sit back and relax. So I'm like, well, good to know I got your back, man.
Yeah, like the one I sent you, Dimmu Borgir, that's like dark castles, like in Iceland language, dark
Hmm.
castles. And they do a lot of like stuff with orchestra, you know.
I like that
So
a
it's
lot. The Norwegian metal's always
yeah,
been pretty badass.
yeah. So it's one that I listen to a lot is Dimmu Borgir. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah. I gotta add them to my playlist.
Yeah. I don't think they've made any albums recently, but they were very popular, at
Yeah.
one time.
I gotta get caught up.
Yeah. Um now where can people find you if they're wanting to kind of check you out and on social
Yeah,
media and
definitely.
stuff?
I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Skylar underscore the underscore goon, is where you can find me on my Instagram handle. Skylar Thomas on Facebook or Skylar the Goon on Facebook. I don't have a Twitter, so those are the really only two sites that you can kind of find me on. I do have fights, competitions of me on YouTube under Skylar Thomas. So you can find me on there. And quick shout out to all of my sponsors is Red Moon Creative Company. She does all of my sweatshirts, my hoodies, my totes, all of my Goon merchandise. She's the one that handles it. And she's got a lot of other awesome merchandise as well. Roto-Rooter, they also sponsor me, as well as Martin Henry Espresso, and Elite Massage Professionals as well. They always know how to, get me nice and ready before a fight, nice and loose. So I really appreciate them for always being there for me and always helping me out with my fight camps.
There's one thing I do want to ask for, like goes like if there was a message you want to leave people, maybe doesn't necessarily have to do with fighting, but if you wanted it to do with fighting or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
um, something that you think's important,
Mm-hmm.
what would it be?
It would be that I'm not going anywhere and I look forward to having a contract in my hands um, by the end of the month. And I'm calling BYB out because I want my fights. I signed for them and I want them. So I'm ready and I'm chomping at the bit. So I'm not going anywhere and I plan to be here for a really long time. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me a part of your show and giving me this opportunity. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to do it, and everyone watching this, check out Skylar and please support her. And until next time, we appreciate you watching the show and take care. All right, so I want to just read a little information about the stuff I'm doing with BetStamp and with my website, which is signupexpert.com/TAS, which is short for Todd Atkins Show. I'm just going to go over a little information here. So sports betting has rapidly risen in popularity, and I want to connect you all with an opportunity to get started or get ahead. Having multiple sportsbook accounts is the most simple way to maximize your profits, and there's never been a better time to sign up. When you visit my page, signupexpert.com/TAS, you'll be connected with all the sports books in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. All these sports books have valuable sign-up offers for new users, and when you register through my link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one. When you use multiple sports books, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful sports betting. If you want to take advantage of these benefits and support our brand, please consider signing up for your next sports book at signupexpert.com/TAS.